Kat, thank you very much for that. What you've said today, what you do in the Shadow Cabinet, what you do as a brilliant MP for Lancaster and Fleetwood, and what you've done all your life, which is to stand up for the rights of women and particularly to inspire young women to realise there is no ceiling they cannot break, there is no job they cannot do, there is no ambition they cannot realise. Kat, thank you for all that you do. Thank you for inviting me here today. I apologise for the disruption caused by other engagements this morning. And I want to say what a pleasure it is to follow Kezia in her speech, which I listened to the last part of. Really good, really effective, showing what can be done with effective leaders, chasing down violence, chasing down misogyny, chasing down prejudice. But I want to thank you all for the inspirational contributions that have been made and the women that came before you to make this incredible movement of ours. I'm just reading about Ellen Wilkinson and her fantastic contribution to our movement way before the Second World War. There's a whole tradition of incredibly brave, strong and powerful women that have done so much. I know everyone in this room today will want to join me in just simply saying this to Sarah Champion. You have our total, full and absolutely warmest support in all that you're going through with the abuse the media are heaping on you at the present time. You're a truly inspiring campaigner, and we all have total trust in you, and I know that you're going to continue doing the excellent work you've always been doing. The advances for women in Britain and around the world have been fought and won by determined campaigners like you, working together for real change, often in the face of intransigence, resistance, and even abuse. That's the legacy of women in our movement. But there's one person who isn't here today. She would be if it weren't for an act of hatred and violence that robbed 2 children of their mother and the Labour Party of a valued and cherished friend. Many of you here today knew Jo. We'll never forget her, never forget what she stood for, never forget what she campaigned for, and together, united, let us fight for the things that would make her proud and make our movement proud. She was murdered as an act of murder on democracy. Remember Jo as a brave woman who stood up for everybody within our society. Anyone who's seen the films and photographs shared by Brendan can have failed to be touched by the images of a woman so clearly delighting in spending time with her children. Our thoughts are obviously with her and her family and everyone else today. Her memory will never die. As colleagues from across Parliament noted in their very moving tributes to her, she was adamant that there was much more that united than divides us, and there's no better way we can honour her memory than ensuring we unite and we are resolute in pursuit of making the world a better place. We must ensure that the Labour Party remains the forefront of championing policies which promote equality. After all, it was us who brought in the original Equal Pay Act in 1970. It was many pioneers in the Labour Party that did so much to support the women's suffrage movement and the suffragettes. This is why earlier this week I urged the National Executive to vote through a policy-making women's conference so the voice of women across our movement can be heard loud and clear in our policy-making process, and I'm very determined that we achieve that. The economic stagnation caused by austerity has seen a desperate drop in living standards for many people. But it's women, above all, who have borne the brunt of this failed and destructive economic experiment. The Women's Budget Group found that 86% of the government's so-called tax and welfare savings have come at the expense of women. The U-turns and concessions we've wrung from the government in the last year, in the main, been victories that have stopped further cuts that would have disproportionately impacted upon women, such as the tax credit cuts. I'm pleased that having set out a clear anti-austerity, pro-investment economic policy, Labour has changed the terms of economic debate in this country. But there is much more to be done. Our society continues to be marked by grotesque levels of inequality, magnified by the actions of this government, and don't forget the previous 5 years of the coalition government and the way it laid the foundations for what this government is doing. We have to address the indefensible penalties which women pay in their everyday lives simply for being women. We need to campaign loud and clear to tackle inequality whenever it's found. I want to pay tribute here to Paula Sheriff for her work on the tampon tax. It's campaigns like that that will make the difference on so many issues for women across Britain. It means tackling inequality in the workplace, where women remain the lowest paid jobs, too often paid less than men, even when they're doing exactly the same job. I'm proud that through our Workplace 2020 campaign, the Labour Party is setting out an ambitious vision for dealing with these issues. I urge all of you to get involved in that campaign and give evidence and advice to that group. I want to also pay tribute to Siobhan McDonough for standing up for low-paid women at Marks & Spencer's, who are being deprived of the benefits of the increase in the minimum wage. There are so many campaigns that are so important. We know that creating a society in which everyone can achieve their full potential will also drive the creation of a stronger economy, and that economic equality benefits us all. The Women's Business Council estimated that equalising men and women's participation in the economy would add 10% to our GDP by 2030. During the recent leadership campaign, we put forward a range of policies aimed at achieving equality for women. Policies built on the work done over the past year. Through investing $500 billion, backed up by a publicly owned National Investment Bank and regional banks in infrastructure, manufacturing and new industries to move us to a high-skilled, high-tech, low-carbon economy. We can transform our country's economic fortunes and the opportunities and life chances of women across the country. We've set out very concrete measures to achieve equal pay, improving access to justice through abolishing tribunal fees, providing the Equality and Human Rights Commission with enhanced powers, strengthening employment and trade union rights, and taking on the occupational segregation of our labour market, which contributes so much to women's concentration in low-paid and often insecure work. I have committed to the Labour Party publishing a regular gender audit of our policies to better communicate the positive impact all our policies will have on moving us towards a more equal society. And I have committed to consult on establishing a high-level strategic Women's Advisory Board, supporting the work of the Shadow Secretary of State for Women and Equalities and linked to the Leader's Office to ensure gender equality is at the heart of all of our policies. I would, if I may, like to take a moment here to thank Angela Rayner. An MP throughout the summer fought tooth and nail to hold the Tories to account on education, grammar schools, equality and women's rights. Not for 1 second has she paused in that fight, and I want to thank her for all that she's done and the campaign we're now mounting to stop the 11 plus and stop the return to educational segregation at the age of 11. To enable women's equality, we need to remove the barriers to their participation, whether that is because of insecure work, expensive childcare, or entrenched, very out-of-date attitudes. The TUC report, Still Just a Bit of Banter, found that more than half of all women polled have experienced some form of sexual harassment in the workplace. This is totally and completely unacceptable. Campaigns such as Everyday Sexism Project have powerfully used social media to expose the day-to-day examples of sexism in every aspect of women's lives. Under my leadership, the Labour Party is committed to consulting and working with women's and other relevant organisations on how to strengthen the law and its implementation to tackle sexual harassment and threats online and increase organisations' responsibility towards promoting safe and respectable community standards online. Reclaim the Internet, which many colleagues here today, including Jess Phillips, thank you Jess, we had a very good meeting earlier on, brings together women's campaigns, think tanks, trade unions and media platforms to challenge the abuse that women face online. Women who are in the public eye, including women in politics, face greater challenges and outrageous abuse both on and offline. Wherever abuse occurs, it's incumbent on all of us to ensure that it is taken seriously and is challenged. And we must acknowledge the terrible truth. that the abuse, threats of violence and bigotry that women in all walks of life are subjected to online are manifestations of attitudes, culture and society offline. Some 85,000 women are raped in England and Wales every year, and domestic violence remains an appalling blight on our society. It will affect a quarter of all women in their lifetime. 2 women a week continue to be killed by their current or ex-partners. Colleagues in the Women's Parliamentary Labour Party have done an inspiring job of highlighting issues of domestic violence. One of the women in my own team said that she'd been moved to tears by the powerful testimony of Angela Smith recently in Parliament as she recounted the tragic story of one of her constituents whose children were murdered by her abusive partner. That's why we are determined to resist at every opportunity further cuts on services for women and girls facing violence, cuts which have been so devastating and so damaging to the safety of women and girls. Supporting the provision of services, rebalancing the economy, ensuring the law protects the rights of women, these are all changes in the world out there which I'm confident we all want to see. And they are changes which will only come about, I believe, if we are prepared to make changes in the world here and within our own party. Our party should be as inclusive as possible. I'm committed to taking forward the recommendations of the Shami Chakrabarti inquiry to consult on a wider introduction of equal opportunities policy, training and guidance for both party members and staff at all levels in our party. If we are to increase women's representation, voice and power in society as a whole, we must increase them too within our own party, the Labour Party. I've been clear in my support for all women shortlists. To achieve 50-50 representation in Parliament, we should aim for 50-50 representation across all public offices with gender-balanced shortlists. Making this conference a representative and democratic annual policy-making conference is a step towards strengthening women's voice within the Labour Party. I hope that you will enjoy this women's conference and you've had a rewarding and enriching day. And I hope that those of you who are going to be here in Liverpool for the rest of the week will also find it equally enjoyable and stimulating. And in doing so, we'll be redoubling our efforts to inspire young women and girls in school and college that they can achieve what they want to achieve. They don't have to be driven down by prejudice or by sexist attitudes within the education system or anywhere else. I really do look forward to campaigning with you in the coming weeks and months, building a united Labour Party that together we can inspire so many people across this country of a different way of doing things, a different way of looking at society and unleashing the potential that is there in every one of our people to achieve the best for themselves and the best for their communities and win for women all across Britain. Thank you very much indeed.